Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for another Journaling on a Budget Extra, and we are making a lap book. So far we have made our base, and we have this side with a folder and a pocket, and we still have to work on finishing this piece here and here. And then we have this flip out here that also needs to be decorated. So we have finished everything there except for decorating and pockets and that type of thing. On this side, we have an envelope and another pocket. We have an envelope here with a tuck band and a pocket here at the top with some writing space. We have an envelope here and here, and another belly band here. So we still have lots to make to put in these spots, but we're going to finish our construction. So now we have just one space left to construct, and then lots and lots of pockets and decorating. So what we're going to do here is we are going to put another piece of paper on top of this with some pockets in it, and we are going to have a couple of flip outs. So the first thing that we're going to do is cut a piece of paper that is the same size as this backing paper and that looks nice together, because you're going to see some of this when we're done. So we're going to cut a piece of paper that is just that size, and then we're going to set that aside because we don't want to glue that down until we finish our flips. So for the first flip, we are going to flip out this way, and so I just have a piece of a file folder here. I want this little bit here because I just like the looks of it, but you don't have to. You can cut it straight if you want and not have this sticking out. If you have this sticking out, you have to remember that that is part of your measurement. If you need a piece, this needs to be 5, let's see, it says 6 inches. Oh yeah, I'm going to cut it 6 inches wide. So you have to remember that this is part of your 6 inches. I make myself notes when I try and, I try and figure it out ahead of time because it helps a little bit. Doesn't necessarily make it right. But my book, all of the inserts that we're putting in here, we are doing those at 8 1/4 tall for this book. You just make it however tall your book is. It doesn't have to be these measurements. But for my book, it's going to be 8 1/4 inches tall, and I'm going to cut this 6 inches. I want 5 1/4 inches across, and then I'm going to have a 1/4 inch score line, and then I'm going to have a 1/2 inch to glue. And so that's where I get my 6 inches. I want it as wide as this, plus a 1/4 inch depth and a 1/2 inch to glue. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard or my cutter here. So I'm going to set this aside for just a second and bring this in. And I'm going to cut this. Oops, not that way. I'm going to cut it at 6 inches. And remembering that I have to take into account this flap. I'm not going to line the 6 up here. I have to line the 6 up with this flap, so that it will fit inside of my book, or that flap will make it too big. So cutting it at 6 inches, and then get rid of the rest of that file folder. And then I'm going to score it at, I want to be 5 1/4 inches this way, so I need to turn this over. Oh, here's my thing. Okay, so 5 1/4. And then a 1/4 inch from there is going to be 5 1/2. And I only have a short scoreboard, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to tip this over and line it back up and score it from this side. Granted, our score lines are not on the same side, so you could fold it either way. You're supposed to fold where you dent to the outside, and then we are going to just fold it. But with these, you want to fold everything both ways anyways, because these need to open up and close, and so you want to make sure that those fold lines move nicely for you. And I have written all over these, but that's okay because we're going to cover them up anyways, so the writing will be covered. Okay, So now this is what we have. It's going to go in our book this way, and when you open it up, there is a 1/4 of an inch here, and then this 1/2 inch down here is what's going to be glued into our book. So that's a flap to go this way, and now I want another flap to go this way. And I have already cut that one. This one is 5 inches across before I hit my fold, and then I have scored 1/8 of an inch here, and then have a 1/2 inch to glue into my book. And with this one, I just cut it straight on the edge. So this one I cut 5 3/4 is where I cut it at. So this one is going to fit in the book underneath here. So then when we have it in the book, it's going to open up like this, and it's going to open up like this, and then we're going to have this piece of paper down in the center. So let me put that aside. And for this one here, we are going to make a pocket page. So how we're going to do that, and you know, there will be things that we're going to definitely need to finish at the end, you know, at a later date. So we never get a whole piece completely finished. The decorating comes later. So what I have done is I have pulled 8 pages out of my book, and that is because my backing is 8 1/4 inches, and so 8 pages, we're going to fold each of them at 1 inch, is going to give us 8 inches. You'll see in just a second. So I have 8 pages here, and I'm going to cut all of them down to 4 3/4, and I'm doing that just so that it's a little bit smaller than my backing. So I have 8 pages that are 4 3/4 wide. And then what we're going to do is one at a time, we are going to score them. We're going to score them at the first one at 1, the second one at 2, the third one at 3, all the way through until we get to 7. 2, 3. I leave them kind of open like this because otherwise it gets to the point where you start having a problem figuring out where the next page goes, because they start getting to be opposites in length. The next one is going to be at 4. Actually, you're supposed to fold that to the outside. There's 5. The next one at 6. You just want to make sure that you get your folds straight. The next one at 7. Okay, now I want to score it at 7, which is going to be right about in there, but I can't score that at 7, so I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to score it at, I can't score it at 1 because this page is actually, this page is 8 3/16. So I'm going to, I need to score it at 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little score mark at 6. And then I'm going to take that score mark and I'm going to move it over to the 5. I know that that's 6 inches right there. Then I'm going to come over here 1 more inch up, which is the 6, and then I'm going to score it there. And that's my score at 7 inches. Okay, and then when you close them up, I did it wrong. That's why I was saying I left them open. There's 1. There's 2 inches. There's the one that's 3 inches. Here's the one that's 4 inches. That's what I did wrong. Here's the one at 5 inches. The 5 inches is what needs to go to the front. Here's the one that's 6 inches. The 6 inches needs to go to the front. And then here's the one with 7 inches, and the 7 inches needs to go to the front. And so now this is what we have. We have a 1-inch pocket all the way up. And when you look at them, the 7 comes all the way to the bottom. The 6, all of them come all the way to the bottom, just like that. And then we are going to take our last page and just put that behind the 7. Now the last page, because this is just a little bit longer than 8 inches, the last page is has a little bit more than 1 inch. That's totally fine. Now you have an option. You can cut it off right here and have those pockets, or you can leave it all together and then you could have kind of secret pockets on the side. Now you'd have to leave this open, which I leave this open anyways, but it's not the best. But, you know, I'm just saying if you want to do that, or if you look at it, it's a little harder to use them if you try and do that. But it's there, and it's an option. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paper clip this together so it doesn't move on me. And I'm going to do it right at the bottom because I want to cut it off right down here at the bottom. And get all the rest of that out of my way. I'm going to put that in there. Okay. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to cut up just a little bit, maybe about 1 inch. I'm going to cut it down about 1 inch from my fold because these are my pockets. Okay, because I want to be able to glue that down also. Then I'm going to take this one and kind of get it out of my way, and I'm going to cut all the extras off. I just want one of them that I can fold up and glue to the back of my paper. So we'll cut those off and get them out of the way. And then we just have this one little piece that we can glue right to our backing. Okay, now the easiest way to put paper on these is to do it right now. And so I have cut 8 pieces of paper. I cut them 2 inches because once you get past the first one, that works just fine. And then what I'm going to do, let me just get this out of the way. Grab a piece of newspaper here. You could also just use your extra book pages, but now that I've got these all cut and everything and they're good to go, I'm going to go ahead and separate them. I just wanted them to be solid while I was cutting the bottom off. And then I am just going to glue these right to my paper. And they are 2 inches. So this one, we're just going to fold that under. But then we will need to trim the edges off of each of them. But the reason that I did that was because it's just easier. You don't have to worry so much about lining it up. Well, if I can get my glue open, and I'm going to glue this because this is the smallest piece. It's smaller than that. I don't want to glue that and get glue all over it because I don't need glue all over it. So I'm just going to take this and just kind of try and line it up a little bit. Here we go. And then trim this off. Find my fold and fold this back over. Okay, so there's number 1. Oops. I forgot to trim this edge over here. That's not lined up perfectly. There we go. And then I'm just using blue for this section, because that's what our backing paper was in the book. So I'm going to just edge that and edge the bottom. Now this is the very first one. The rest of them you don't have to do that because you're not going to see the bottom. But this one we want edged all the way around. That sticks out a little bit. That's okay because that's going to be folded behind. So that should be okay. So there's the first one. And I just have 4 different papers here. So now I'm going to take the second one and put glue on it. And put it on here. There we go. I lined that one up pretty good. So all I need to do is trim off this piece of decorative paper. Put a little bit of blue on the edge of that one where I cut it. Already edged the rest of it. This one goes right in there. Now I'm going to do the 3 and the 4 all the way up to 8. And once I get the paper on each one of them, this is next. And now what I'm going to do is I only need glue at the top part of this because this one is then going to go down in here just like that. So you don't have to have a piece 3 inches and then 4 inches and then I just cut them all 2 inches because I know my gaps are 1 inch apart. So that 2 inches gives us plenty to be tucked down in there where nobody's going to see the edge or anything like that of our book pages. So I'll just do this one really quick and then I will go off camera and do the rest of them so that you don't have to watch me do all 8 of them. Just take this one. And I am trying to line them up because then I don't have to redo all the edges. I guess I could have waited to do the edges. Now remember, don't cut your book paper. Just cut the decorative paper out of your way. The book paper is your pocket. So cut that one off. Put a little bit of blue distress ink on there. And this is the 3rd pocket. Oops. You have to be careful if your glue's not dry that they don't glue together. So there is 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of them and I will be right back. Oops, I'm not going to press those together. I really am going to actually just leave them apart. Just put them in order. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I will be back in just a second. Okay, I'm back, and this is what each of the pieces looks like. There's the 1, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to put them in order. Because we cut them off at the bottom, we're able to, line them up by getting that bottom nice and straight. Just like that, and put our final one on there. Okay, and then you can leave them like this, or if you like to have the half rounds in there, I'm going to show you how to do that if I can. What did I do with my clips? Here we go. Looking for my paper clips. I want to clip it back together again so that it does not move. Make sure you're lined up really nicely. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to punch my half rounds with a 1-inch punch. So I'm going to start over a little further than a 1/2 inch from the top because I want to take this 1-inch punch and I want to put it on here where it's not going to cut off the edge of my paper. So I'm going to go ahead, and actually I could line it up like this. I've got this edge here of my punch. I can just line it up in there and say that will be the center of my very first half round right there. All right, then and that is about 3/4 of an inch is going to be the center of this punch. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go from there And I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom corner, making sure that I have at least a 1/2 inch here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move back just a little bit to make sure I have a 1/2 inch there. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a mark with the ruler. I know that my first one is there. My second one will be here. This one will be here. This one, and it doesn't matter what size punch you're using for your half rounds. This will work to do it that way. And so now there's a mark on each one where I want the center of my punch. Now for the first one, I'm going to have to pull it back a little bit so I can actually, I have to take my first one off. I still want to keep those, they don't really have to stay together. Okay, so for my first one, because I need to get in there, I want to make sure that I'm not going off the edge. I'm going to have to move this one over just a little bit, because otherwise I would have really been off the edge. So there we go. And then I'm just going to go with each one. And just punch them. And that will just move each one of them over a little bit. Oops. Until we get all the way to the top. And I'm not doing quite half my circle. I don't want my little tabs to be that deep. There. So there we go. Now they each have that. We'll put a little blue on there. Now our only thing is here we've got that. It's not going to matter. This goes on here. So if you see that, don't think you have to cover that with paper because it's going to be covered here. So we're really quickly going to edge those because by edging them, it will make them stand out against the paper behind it a little bit. And because we've already edged the rest of it, we don't want to leave that kind of like raw edges. And this is not something that is in my original lap book. This is just something, my husband and I went away this weekend and I was playing with a few things for this, and I don't know, I just thought this would be really cool. I like to do like the multiple pockets like this. And I've probably done it somewhere before. I know I've done it sideways where you fold it across this way. But there we go. So now we're going to take this and attach it together just along the edges. And you can do it one of two ways. This is going to go in here, oops, like this. And it's going to be glued right to this backing. So what you can do is you can just glue each one here along the edge so that this side of the pocket is solid, but then this side of the pocket is open like a tuck, like that. And or otherwise you can glue both sides and then they will definitely be pockets. What I usually do when I'm really not sure, because I'm just not sure, I kind of like, the deeper the pockets get, or the tighter they are, the more I like to leave one side of the pocket open. So if something gets down in there and kind of gets stuck, you can go in from the side and get it out of there. So I have not exactly decided what I want to do. The only one that will definitely for sure be a pocket is going to be the back one, because the back one we're going to glue it to this. So I'm going to have to glue around all of the edges, and that will glue the back one down solid. Well, not solid, but it will be a pocket from the top. But the rest of them I am not going to glue. For right now, I'm just going to glue this edge of each one. And you can do that with whatever kind of glue that you have. And you just want to make sure that you keep them nice and even and straight while you're gluing. Once you get that glued, you'll be all set. But you don't want things to be wrong while you're doing your gluing. So I'm going to get it all lined up. Oops. All lined up nicely. And being that I'm going to glue this side first, once I get it where I want it, I'm going to throw a paper clip on it. And if it's off a little bit when you're done, you can go in and trim it. It's not a big deal. There's never anything that you can do that's going to ruin it. You may ruin a piece, like, oh, I really like the way this looks, and somehow I might ruin it. Well, I'd just remake it. If I don't have the same papers, and that's what I loved, well, just remake it with something else, and you may find you'll love it even more. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to glue on the little pocket part. You don't want to glue on this part because you don't know exactly where you have to stop. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to kind of do it to all of them, and then I'll give it a good press down. You don't want to have too much glue, but you do want that pocket to stay shut. And make sure you come all the way to the top of that pocket. If you keep it in a little bit from the edge, it won't squish out as bad. I'll take this paper clip off now. There we go. Get that out of my way. I'm going to lay this down and I'm going to press out. That will go ahead and press them together, and it will squish any extra glue out instead of in. And I think it looks like I missed one. Yep, I missed one totally. Let's get our glue on there. And there we go. So now we have those ready to put onto here. And what I want to do first is I'm going to put some ink on here because this is going to show. Now you can, I'm going to fold it this way so that my writing winds up glued down inside my book. I have a piece of hair stuck to the glue on my hand. I'm going to fold both of them. This one has an 1/8 inch score in it. Make sure that I get both of those folded really well. Sorry about that. I'm just folding it. Okay, now this is going to go, to look at my book, this is going to go in my book. Oh, I'm confused. I don't need the book really, I just need all the pieces. Okay, this one is on the top, and this one is on this side. And I'm going to need to erase my marks because I don't know what I'm doing with the other side yet. Sorry about the wiggling and jiggling. There we go. All right, so let's edge this up real quickly. This part's going to be glued underneath, so that one I don't need to edge. I'm going to come in with my edging a little bit because there's going to be a little bit of a gap all the way around, hopefully. That should be the way that it was cut, except at the bottom there might not be. And then I'm going to take this 1/8 inch scored part and get some ink on there. And it doesn't need to be solid, you know, letting it be a little darker here and there is nice. So there we go. This is going to be glued in here, and I just need to make sure that I glue it the right way. This is going on this side of my book. And when you open it up, this is going to be inside. So that is the way that it needs to be glued just like that. Get a little bit more here inside my 1/8 inch line because I do have that spacing. All right, I've got this glued together. So I'm going to glue this flap that we left on the bottom. I'm going to put glue on that and glue it to the back of here. And this is not a pocket, this is just the extra that we left that was folded backwards. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on here where it needs to be, making sure that it's centered and that it's straight. Okay, it looks like I might need to trim a little bit off the top when I'm done. I'm going to just fold that up. I'm just giving that a good press and letting it hold. That's a really thick fold. Got a little glue that was still squishing out there, so I want to get that off. All right, now that that is on, we're going to do our back pocket. And remember, we didn't do this side over here. I'm just going to open this all the way up, and I'm going to put across the top, the bottom, and the other side. I'm going to put the glue to make that back pocket. And if you don't want that back pocket that deep, you can glue it halfway up if you want to, and then your pocket would only be halfway deep. But I will show you how to put things in so that you can get them out, even in a deep pocket. Okay, so there's our back pocket. So now that's on there pretty solid as soon as that dries. We do still have this whole side open, and if you want, you can just go right ahead and glue that up if you know for sure you want pockets. I'm still debating as to whether I want these loose so that I can get all the way in there or not. A lot of times if I'm not sure what I want, if it's something I can leave till later, I just leave it till later. One thing I do know, this little pocket is so little, I'm going to glue that one down because it's just kind of flipping up there. I don't like that, and at 1 inch, anything that's in there is not going to get lost. Hopefully. So just put a little glue on the edge of that one and glue it down. And there we go. That's just getting glued to the one in front of it. It's not getting glued to all the way down. And there we go. So now we have this part of our flip in. And now we are going to start putting it together. I'm going to edge this really quick because it's getting glued down solid. So it will be really hard to try and edge it later. Okay, got that edged. We have both of our flip outs done, and lost the lid to that. Oh well. Oh, here it is. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make little pockets, little flip doors in this one. Excuse me. The way that I did this was when I cut it, I cut this line to be my bottom line and because I have these in here, I don't have to do any measuring, but you can just measure yourself a door. And what I'm going to do is, when I glue this to the back of my book, when I glue it into the book, it is going to be glued all the way around, and it's going to be glued across the middle. But this area and this area is not going to be glued, and we're going to have doors that will flip open and close, and those will be pockets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut. I want my little doors to open this way. It doesn't matter which way they open, but that's the way that I want them to open. So I'm going to cut this side is going to be my opening. And here's my little knife. And I'm going to cut that just inside. I'm going to turn it over for myself, because this 1/2 mark is going to be glue. I don't want it cut right up to that. I'm going to cut it over about around 1/2 inch, between 1/4 and 1/2, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. Okay, now here's my problem is I don't know where I need to start and stop, because I'm going to cut this out right here. So I need to say, okay, I want to cut it here. I want to cut it right there. And let's see here. I'm going to go to the outside of the brown line. So I'm going to cut it at this blue line. And I'm going to cut it to the outside of this brown line. So I'm going to cut it right at this blue line. And then I'm going to cut it this blue line right here. And just the other side of this blue line. No, I don't want to go that high. So on this one, I'm going to cut it at the inside blue line, under the brown line, because I'm going to be gluing to here. So I'm going to do that one under the blue line. I'm going to do this one under the blue line so that they're the same. All right, so I'm going to cut at this blue line and this blue line that are under the brown one. And then here, I'm going to cut under the brown one. Oh, so that works good. And under the brown one. All right, let's try that again. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to cut my up and down cuts. From right there to right there, and from this line to that line. Alrighty, now I'm going to flip it over because I want to make sure that I cut straight on this side, and I'm going to follow these lines that I want to cut. Now, how far do I want to cut over? I think I will come in 3/4 of an inch, because I know I'm going to glue a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to line this up with the 2. I'm going to cut this blue line right here. Okay, so I'm lining that up with the 2. So I'm going to start, put my glasses on. I'm going to start at 2 3/4. And I'm going to come right over to the line that I just cut. Right there. Come down here. Here we're going to cut this blue line. So line that up with the 2. And then go to 2 3/4. And cut that right to this line here. And I cut down further than I wanted to. It's not a big deal. Everything is always workable. There we go. So now I have this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and hold it here. Line it up. And just give that a fold. And so there's our fold. That fold I'm not going to fold out like super folded out, because I want that to kind of stick back down when we close our book, like that. So so I'm not going to put a huge crease in it. Alrighty, so now I'm going to go here and get this one done really quickly. This one I cut under the white line, so might as well do the same with this one up here. Line it up with 2. Start at 2 3/4. And cut to this line. And this one is going to be in this blue line. Line it up with 2. Start at 2 3/4. Oops, I unlocked my thing. Come to that line. And this one I need to cut down just a little bit because we adjusted it. There we go. Put my ruler over here. Line this up with my cut lines. And just give that a little bit of a fold. Okay. So those are going to be our little hidden pockets. Now, let's see here. It says, cut it out before you glue it. Cut it at 3/4 of an inch from each side. Go just above and below the brown lines. Glue this in the file folder. Oh, glue both of our sides in before we glue in this piece. All right, so now I'm going to erase those because these are going to be flipped out. Didn't think about that when I wrote that there. So I don't want that on the back side of my pocket. Get this one here. And even though this is where our doors are, we're not gluing all the way up to our door because we need to have a spot to put things in. There we go. Okay, I'm not going to distress the edges of these doors because I want them to be kind of hidden. I want them to blend in. Now we are ready, I believe, to start putting this in our book. So we are on side 2 and we are right here on this section. So this is going to go here and this is going to go here. And this is going to go here. I haven't even decided yet exactly what I'm doing with this one, but I want to get it in there beforehand so I don't have to glue it on top like this if I've already glued this in. That's why it's going in. And if you forget, then you glue it on top, you put a piece of washi tape over it so you can't see it. No big deal. So I'm going to glue these in and just line them up with the paper that I've already got glued in there. And I find when I do this, when I do these lap books, I've only done a couple, but I do find that I wind up covering up some of my really pretty paper in every time I do it. Because no matter how much I think I've thought ahead, there's so many different tucks and pockets and everything else that, you know, I put something in and then I change my mind, come up with something new. So I'm just going to center this and get all the way out to the edge. I need to be all the way at the edge so the other one will fit. There we go. All right, so that one is in. Let's get this one in. And as you're going through and you're making yours, if you're following along and making them, just remember that if you make a mistake, just go with it. You know, if you glue something down and you didn't want to, or whatever, just go with it. Just go from there forward. Put a pocket on it, you know, change the color of the paper, or, you know, whatever. It works. That's why the one that I followed the tutorial by Nick the Booksmith. And even following the tutorial, following right along with her, I still wound up getting off and doing things differently, not necessarily on purpose, but just because I kind of messed something up, and so I had to change it up a little bit. I'm going to go out to the edge here. One thing is, when you're working on yours, don't do anything with this piece here. We've already got a little bit in there, but we're going to need a little gap there for our ties for the front. Okay, I just don't want that glue to be wet when I glue in my next piece. And so there we go. There's that one that flips out that way. And there's that one that flips out that way. And then this is going to go right in here. And I just want to make sure that it's not binding up where my folds are. I got to be inside this fold here, not that fold out there. I need my 1/8 of an inch gap there. Okay, and it's a little bit too big, and I've got one of these bottoms pushed in too far. Don't know if I'm going to be able to move it out or not. This one. Oh, good. Thank goodness it was the second one. That was very uneven. There we go. I was able to move that over. Let's see what we've got here. Yeah, that looks much straighter. There's that edge and that edge and that edge and that edge. Okay, and I need to trim off. I'm going to trim off probably about 1/8 of an inch or so that it fits. The biggest thing is you don't want things to bind. Make sure that everything will close nicely. And I'm just using my trimmer. Okay, before I edge it, let's make sure it's going to fit. Okay, it fits nicely at the top. Oh, I've got to go all the way to the top. Yep, that looks like that fits pretty good. I'm going to throw some blue Distress ink on here and on the edge of this page. Because even though I don't know what I'm exactly doing with that yet, I know this section is pretty much in blues. So whatever I'm going to do over there is going to wind up being in blues. And it will be easier to do it now before I glue in that backing page than later. So I'll just put that on there. And like I said, don't worry about it being different colors. You want light spots, dark spots, missing spots. That's what makes it look good, instead of all just one solid color. I want a little bit more over here. This is bothering me. Okay, I'm lining it up with the backing paper behind and with where my folds are, making sure that I'm not getting to those. Okay, that looks good. That's going to work. I've got room for this to close. Got room for that to close. Yep. Okay, so now I'm going to put glue in. Remember, I'm only going to put glue right through the middle. That's going to make my two pockets. And then right along the 1/2 inch of the edges, all the way around. There we go. Maybe a little bit more right up here. Hopefully I'll be able to get it lined up nicely. I have to remember I'm lining this up with the paper behind it, not with my file folders. They're close, but there's a little bit of a difference. Before I push it down, I want to make sure I'm checking where my seams are for my folds. Make sure it looks straight, and there we go. So I'm going to push kind of up and out. Push out here, push down and out, down here, and push down this one. Okay, so now we have this little spot, and that spot is somewhere where you can put a little hidden tag in there. We just have glued right here, so there's a little bit of a area there that you can fit in. And then this one's just glued at the bottom, so you've got that there. And then because we didn't put a huge crease in them, they kind of like stay down, especially once everything starts getting closed up. The ones in my other book, they just kind of stick down there, and it's really kind of fun that you don't really notice that they're there. So here's what we've got for today. We have got this whole section put in. It's not decorated yet, but it's now in, so we still have to do this, and we still have to do this side. We do have our pockets in here and our hidden pockets here. So that is it for today's session. Thank you very much for stopping by. This is what we look like so far, so I really do appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying the series, and I will be back tomorrow with the next part. Thanks again for watching, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.